Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Porrazza Nutrition Podcast. I'm Adam, your producer, and with me, of course, is Felicia Porrazza of PorrazzaNutrition.com, a registered dietitian, certified BAMF. B-A-M-F. BAMF. BAMF. You know what that is?
No.
It's some old school internet lingo. It means bad mother.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. That's you, certified
Wow.
BAMF. You're the BAMF of the week, month, and year. What are we talking about today on the Porrazza Nutrition Podcast?
What do dietitians even do?
What do you even do?
Well, nothing really.
What do you even do? Do you even do? What do you even?
Just nothing.
Okay. Well, it's got to be something, and we're going to discuss that today. We're going to discuss the route to becoming an RD. We're going to discuss Felicia's personal journey to highlight that route, areas of practice for RDs, and how a dietitian can help you, yes, you, with your daily life.
Yes.
All right. So, first of all, how you doing today?
Doing lovely. Great.
Lovely, wonderful. You were on a call earlier.
Exceptional.
This woman's working hard. She's working hard today, ladies and gentlemen. She's working her tail off, even all through this pandemic and whatnot. Still working, chugging along right here from home. Still teaching, answering emails, clients, all that fun, happy nonsense. Okay, so let's just first talk about your formal education, starting from undergrad. What did you study? What do dietitians major in?
So I majored in nutrition and dietetics, and so I went to Westchester University. My major is a Bachelor of Science.
Westchester University in
PA.
southeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Cool. You majored in what?
Bachelor. Well, it was nutrition and dietetics, so it was a Bachelor of Science.
That's the major. Gotcha. Okay, and what did you study? I mean, everyone takes gen eds.
Yeah.
We know that.
You know, all that kind of stuff.
What were your electives? What did you take? Like what weird stuff did you take that wasn't relevant?
I took
Like
kind of
art
funny.
history or something?
No, I took a film class. Do you remember that?
Well,
Remember you watched
my
the videos
God,
for
yeah.
me?
She fell asleep in the middle of like
The
every
Godfather.
movie. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. She's out cold in the middle of it. Outrageous. I actually liked a lot of the movies that we watched for
The
that
Night
class.
of Living Dead. Was the
Yeah,
other
well,
one.
that was the classic one, the black and white, awesome movie. And then there was one called the Outcast or something like that.
Yeah, The Outcast or The Outliers.
Something.
No, I think it was The Outcast. I
We're
don't know.
butchering it. Anyway, so you took a film class. You took some weird stuff.
Yeah, film class, music class,
Music class.
personal defense.
Okay, yeah. I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, I only took half of it because I had a back brace on the other half.
Oh my God, yeah. She had some surgery in the middle of college. That's right. You did have a back brace.
Yes.
Pretty nerdy. Also kind of hot. Just kidding. Anyway, and then you took, I'd assume science
Yes.
of some kind or many kinds.
Yeah, so I took like your chemistry 101, which was kind of similar to high school chemistry, just a little harder.
Right,
And then
of course.
organic chemistry and biochem, which they're pretty...
They're different. That's some heavy stuff. So organic
Yeah.
chemistry is like the study of what? Living beings?
Yeah.
But the chemistry thereof?
Yeah, and like, you know, we still go over like the periodic table and all that kind of stuff.
Just
but
more applied to like living organisms, I guess.
yes, and then like a lot of equations I remember from that course in particular.
Fun stuff.
Microbiology,
Microbiology, right?
Microbiology, so
Jeez.
learning about like viruses and parasites and that course was pretty interesting just because there were so many different diseases and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and it's pretty relevant to dietetics, I would say.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your undergrad was kind of similar to like maybe what a doctor or scientist or biologist would study.
Yeah, like a lot of the students that were in my courses,
Pre-med?
some of them were pre-med, some of them were going to like, well, I guess PA school, but I don't know if that's considered pre-med.
Physician assistant.
Yeah.
It's on that route.
Some nursing too. So like if they're in like the beginning or if they were thinking about transitioning. So,
Right. That makes sense.
so a lot of more of like your other healthcare professionals.
Okay. And then, so lots of science.
Yeah. So the, those kinds of sciences, like your chemistry and then also, like anatomy.
Right.
Physiology.
Anatomy and physiology.
Yep.
A lot of that sort of stuff. And then you took some classes that were more relevant to dietetics and food.
Yeah. So like, you had to take a lot of those science classes first, like chemistry and all that. And then you could take some of the core nutrition ones.
So the first couple of years were gen eds, some science, some art history. some underwater basket weaving.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And
Mix it
then
up.
you got into like you did like a food service management class and like a clinical nutrition.
Yeah, so my food service management, there was a couple of different tiers to it. So one aspect of food service management was just more so on like the actual like how to manage.
Like literally management.
Yeah,
Okay.
literally management and like full-time equivalents.
Okay. Oh yeah, FTEs. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you
things
go.
like that.
Oh my God, that was I was swimming in that crap for a while.
Budgets, even like menu planning and marketing aspects too.
Yep. Too bad you never got to use it. What a shame.
Yeah.
Just for reference, I was in food service management for a few years before I retired from food service. But you took some of the same classes that I took in college. Oddly enough, business administration, food nutrition, or dietetics. Wouldn't think there'd be much overlap. So, it sounds like, just from talking about what you took in college, it kind of sounds like, and this was always my impression, sort of, that nutrition is sort of a sliver of biology with some applied chemistry.
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of science, nutrition. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and even like one of the there's so many definitions of nutrition, but that's included in it as it's a science. It's something I like always say to people too.
Yeah, it is absolutely a science, which is, it's just so funny to think about that, because you find that a lot of people have some very serious opinions about nutrition, which is just ironic, because you would think that someone's opinion wouldn't be valued to another science. Say, if I had an opinion about physics, what value would that have? Physics is just kind of what it is. If I had the opinion that the speed of gravitational acceleration was 8 meters per second squared instead of 9 or something, like, why would that matter? You can sort of apply the same line of logic to nutrition. I mean, it is a science.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a science. It is chemistry and biology happening inside the human body.
Yeah.
And that's what you learned about in college, rolled into some classes that really dial it in to food.
Yeah, food and like disease specific courses too. So like one course I took was called medical nutrition therapy. So we went through all the different, diseases and things like diabetes or renal disease,
stuff that
high
diet
cholesterol
heavily influences.
Yeah.
Heart disease, I guess.
Yes, heart disease, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
big stuff, big killers in the United States, some serious problems.
Yeah. And just, not only learning what the diseases are, but how to manage them with nutrition, basically.
Interesting. So it's starting to sound like maybe you have an informed opinion on nutrition, and maybe there's a reason you're a dietitian. Maybe there was some stuff that you studied in college that made it easy for you to formulate opinions about food and, the way you should eat.
I mean, I guess because there's only...
I'm cracking a joke here that, literally everyone online is like a food expert. I mean, everyone has such a strong opinion on what they should and shouldn't eat, and it's funny because I have the benefit of living with someone who is a certified, quite literally certified expert in what you should eat and how it affects your body, and you just see some of the craziest stuff coming out of the internet. But what else is new? You can look at anything and get some crazy stuff from the folks on the internet. So you completed your bachelor's.
Yes.
What was the next step?
So the next step was to apply for what's called a dietetic internship. So that is something you do after you finish your degree and have a bachelor's. And it was 9 months long, 1,200 hours.
Oof.
Yeah.
Full time?
Full time.
Like 40-hour weeks?
Yeah, the one
Unpaid?
the one I did was full time. And then they're generally unpaid. Mine was unpaid. So you actually pay them. Point that out.
Gross.
So,
got to pay the piper for your free labor.
Yes.
That's weird. That's like a reverse job.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a real thing.
Maybe.
A reverse job. So you got yourself a reverse job.
Yes.
You signed up, but it was quite a process to even get accepted into an internship. So you had to apply for the privilege of someone else owning your labor at the cost of you.
Yeah.
And it was quite a process. I remember you applying to a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
You matched with like your third. So
Yeah.
explain the process for like the application and what you actually have to go through.
Yeah. So when you do the process, it's called a matching process basically. And through the software, you upload like your resume and your references and all that kind of stuff. And you pick the internships that you're planning to apply to. And so I think I ended up applying to like 8 or so because I didn't want to go through it again because it was like $500.
Sure, yeah, of course.
And each application was its own fee too. So it was like, didn't want to do it twice.
Yeah.
So when you rate your internships, you rate them on what you would like first. So the first one is number 1, number 2, number 3. So I didn't get matched to my first 2, which meant that they didn't choose me in their list. So I got matched to my third.
Was your first Sodexo?
Yeah, it was Sodexo, Aramark. And they were ones that I like didn't think I was going to get.
Well, they're really competitive.
They're super competitive. They don't really have a ton of spots. So
see, that's how we knew each other initially. We both worked in a facility that was managed by Sodexo. I later wound up working for Sodexo in management, and even though she had ins, still didn't get accepted. You had glowing reviews and some pretty straight up connections.
Yeah.
And it just didn't pan out. So you didn't get your first or second, but you got your third.
I got my third, yeah.
You matched with your third.
I got matched with my third, and what's funny is I did get an interview for Sodexo.
Okay.
And they told me that like over 350 people had applied for that one. So
for that one spot, or like however many 10
there was
spots.
like 5 spots. So it was like,
so
I didn't feel
it's
as
super
bad.
competitive, yeah. But you got in with, what was it, Utah
State University.
Cool.
Yep. So.
And that was a remote program.
Yes. So it was called a distance internship. So basically I went to Utah State University once for just like orientation.
Yeah, I remember when you flew out. She sent me some bomb scenic pictures. That place is beautiful.
It was in Salt Lake City, so nice.
Really cool shots. I wish I could have gone with you. Yeah. But anyway, you went to Salt Lake City for a day.
You were
out there for a little while.
Yeah, I think it was like 5 days, I think, in total.
A little vacation.
Yeah. And then, so that was like orientation. So I met the other interns and the internship directors, and we actually did some like coursework type stuff too.
Okay.
So like case studies, and they just kind of like reviewed what you basically are going to be doing throughout the internship. So with doing a distance program, I had to actually set up the rotations I was going to be at. So I had to set up the site that I was going to go to for my food service.
So just to break it down a little bit. So, all right, you finished your bachelor's. Science, electives, art history, done.
Yep.
Oh, you minored in college too, briefly.
Yeah, I didn't finish the minor.
But that's something that some people do. I think what was it, like exercise science?
Mine was exercise science.
Whatever. You didn't need the minor anyway. She's got her personal trainer cert anyway.
Yeah, that worked out better actually.
ASCM or NASM or one of them.
ACSM.
There you go.
Yeah.
Certified personal trainer also as well. In addition. So you finish college. Boom. You're done. Congratulations. Now you have to pay for a 9-month-long internship.
Woo!
You have to get into the one that you want. Rejected. Boom, you're in, but it's a distance program.
Yep.
Fly out to Utah for 5 days.
Yes.
Hang out, go through their ropes and whatnot. Come back, and then you have to literally set up the rotations for your internship. So, you're doing like 8-week-long intervals for...
Yeah, so with my program in particular, my first rotation was food service management and school nutrition education.
Was that Pennsbury?
Pennsbury.
Yep, so you were at a school district.
Yep, so I was in the Pennsbury school district. So
you were a lunch lady.
I wasn't a lunch lady.
You were
did
hanging out with the lunch ladies.
I did serve on the lunch lady line.
You were a lunch lady.
Yeah,
There's no shame in being a lunch lady. What's wrong with you?
They were awesome people.
The lunch lady was my favorite person when I was in elementary school. So sweet, so nice. I still remember most of the faces of the lunch ladies that I ever had when I was in middle school and high school too. Super nice. I mean, I'm sure they loved working there. It's probably an awesome job, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's probably a cool job to just relax into as you're getting a little older and kind of like semi-retired.
Yeah.
I might go be a lunch lady too.
I mean, a lot of them they were such sweet.
Do you think
people.
I'd be a good lunch lady or?
Although I was gonna say you should
lunch man.
It was more fun being in like the the younger kids, like with like
I'm sure
K to 5.
The younger kids are more fun. I could see the older kids being a little not so nice.
Yeah.
So one of your rotations, it was 8 weeks, was it?
The food service rotation
weeks?
was 12
12 weeks?
Yeah. So
okay.
then there was a school nutrition education piece of it too. So I actually dressed up as a pea pod.
Oh,
and a
I remember
banana.
that. Jesus, I'll throw a picture up of her in her pea pod costume.
Yeah.
If I find it.
I was a pea pod, and I dressed up as a banana because it was school nutrition week. So I I gave out stickers to every kid that had fruits and vegetables. So
The pea pod was an interesting choice. It looked like a pea pod, but you could have been construed to look like some other. You'll see. If you know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean if you're looking at it right now.
it was an old costume.
Anyway, yes, it was an old saggy costume.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. So after food service, that rotation, then I went to community nutrition, which I did at a WIC site.
So WIC is
It stands for Women, Infant, Children.
okay.
So
It's like a public assistance kind of a deal.
Yeah. So it's for women who are breastfeeding or for like children under the age of 5, and they have to be at a nutritional risk. So the risk primarily was that a lot of the children were iron deficient.
Oh, okay.
And so they would get WIC vouchers. So sometimes they were for formula.
So like food stamps, or not?
It's kind of like
else?
food stamps, but the thing with WIC is that it's very particular foods. So it's like stamped on a voucher that they bring to the grocery store. They can only buy what's stamped on the voucher.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's very particular.
Very specific gift card.
Yes. It tells
Cool.
you they can feed this much milk, this much that. So yeah.
Got it. So you did one for community nutrition with WIC for a rotation. You hung out and you just kind of worked with everybody and you learned the environment and you learned what the duties were.
Mm-hmm.
And did you work with dietitians there?
So there was actually one dietitian there, and then they had nutrition educators. So people would come in, get their WIC check, and then they would sit down with an educator and go over some nutrition. And then I did like presentations for the staff too.
Okay.
So, on hot topics or things like that.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then, so did you do a rotation in a hospital?
Yes. So my rotation was set up where I did an inpatient rotation. So I was at a hospital for 6 weeks. That was at Grandview Hospital in Sellersville. The one that was like an hour away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that was inpatient. So I was in the ICU. I did their cardiac floors and did tube feeding recommendations in the ICU.
Fun
calculations.
Stuff.
Some
More
dietitians
formulas.
love that.
Yeah,
I
did
did not.
Yeah, it's you showed me the formulas you had to do the one time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You think you never need algebra, and then you become a dietitian. So you did a bunch of these rotations in a bunch of different places, and effectively you got a taste or an experience of the various roles that you could end up filling.
Yeah.
And then, so what else? What other rotations did you do?
So my inpatient was 6 weeks, and then I did 3 weeks at a long-term care facility.
Okay.
And it was like a nursing and rehab facility. Mm-hmm. And then my last rotation was actually 2 weeks at an eating disorder. Well, it wasn't just eating disorders, but it was a behavioral health hospital.
A mental health kind of a deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was eating disorders and then also mental health conditions too.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave you a lot of experience in the field in terms of potentially what a dietitian could end up doing. There's a lot of roles that you could end up filling as a dietitian. Interesting, because you don't really think about it. But, you finished your rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You finished all your internship and whatnot. And then you come out of the internship, and then what do you do?
So after you pass the internship, because there's classes that you take.
Or what did you do?
What I did after that was studied for about... I don't know. I think it was like a month I ended up studying. I was studying throughout my internship. And
for your boards?
For my boards.
So there's a board they have to pass and become certified with, just like an RN would. Many other medical professionals need to pass some sort of board.
Yep. So my...
State certified?
So it's a national exam. So
okay. It's a national.
Yep.
Okay.
So for the national exam, it's... I think it's in 2 hours long that you sit for it. But... I studied for about a month or so and then sat for the board. So,
sat for the boards, freaking nailed it.
Yes.
Obliterated
became a dietitian.
It. And then, so undergrad, 4 years, 9-month-long internship, study for your boards, pass your boards.
Yep.
Now you are a registered dietitian, nationally recognized in terms of the credential. Mm-hmm. The bachelor degree is required to sit for that board, correct?
Yes.
And the internship.
Yeah. And
so you must do it.
Yes. And that's something that it's going to be required to be a master's actually in 2024.
But so the next batch of dietitians coming out of school that are going in now, they're going to need their masters.
Yes.
Okay. But you got out, you were an RD, a registered dietitian, with your bachelor's and your internship under your belt. You, in this case, did go back for your master's, but you didn't go back right away.
No, I waited about a year. And
you
then
were
went
working.
Back. Yes.
You were working. So from what I remember, you were working at the YMCA.
Not for my master's. I was at ShopRite.
Well, before your master's.
Oh, yeah, before my master's. Sorry.
Yeah, so you got out of college.
Yes.
And I think maybe even while you were doing your internship a little bit, or and then after you passed your boards and you became an RD, you were working at the Y.
Yes.
And what were you doing at the Y?
So I was doing...
Does everyone know what the YMCA is? It's like a community center / gym kind of a deal.
It's a nonprofit. They have classes for like kids, like
after school programs.
After school programs, childcare, preschool.
Pre-education too, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I was already working there. I used to teach gymnastics classes. That's
you did like swimming instructions.
Yep, swimming for like little kids. Not like it's like up to like age 7.
Yeah,
tumbling.
Obscure fun fact: that's the YMCA that I went to when I was a little tiny child.
Oh, that's right.
And I must have had classes with Felicia's mom at that point because she was there in early childhood education or whatever it was, and I was there for a few years. Yeah. So it's interesting, and we didn't know each other until we were both in our like late teens, early 20s, working at a hospital together. But just funny that our paths crossed a little bit early in life. Interesting little tidbit. Anyway, you were working there before college, and you continued to work there. Your mother worked there too, which is really cool. You guys got to work together. And then you were working sort of as a dietitian?
Yeah, so before I became a dietitian, I was able to do some classes there. So I did like some weight management classes and like nutrition seminars and stuff like that. So that was really cool.
Nice. And
then once I became a dietitian, then I started doing one-on-one counseling and group classes that were kind of centered around counseling.
Okay. So that's some good experience.
Yeah,
Pretty sweet.
It was really good experience.
And you didn't have to pay them, they paid you.
Yes.
Unlike your internship. I'm setting the stage here because one thing I think that's unfortunate with dietitians is that your expertise is sort of not only undersold, but also understated. So a lot of people don't know that dietitians do all this stuff. And a lot of people that do know what dietitians do and who they are still would rather hear it from their doctor.
Yeah.
Which is ironic to me because, doctors take a nutrition class in college, but they take a nutrition class in college. It's not really their concentration, especially a general practitioner like a doctor, like a family doctor.
Yeah.
Granted, obviously doctors are medical experts. Absolutely consult your doctor for literally everything. Always, go get your blood checked and you should see your doctor regularly. Absolutely see your doctor. But, if your doctor tells you one thing about food and what you should be eating and a dietitian tells you something that's a little different, the unfortunate thing is that everyone's really going to go with their doctor.
Yeah, and I wish that there'd be better partnerships between the two because you absolutely want to work with
a doctor,
the doctor.
Yeah.
But it works so well when the dietitian and the doctor and obviously the client too are all working together. It just makes,
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's an unfortunate stigma. Obviously, I have the benefit of having a much deeper knowledge of this, not only working with dietitians in a professional setting, because, that was kind of my career for a while, but also living and going through life with you. So I know the process very intimately compared to most people, I guess. But anyway, you had your first job as sort of a dietitian, pre-dietitian. You're at the Y. You finish your internship. You become a dietitian. You're credentialed. And you're still working at the Y, but then you got your first real job.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was?
I was a retail dietitian at a ShopRite.
Retail dietitian.
Yes.
So what the F is that?
So I worked in a supermarket. I actually had a desk on the floor in the supermarket next to pharmacy.
Heck yeah.
So
it was what was it, an Acme? It's a ShopRite.
ShopRite. Yeah. And it was such a great first job. Like, big dietitian job, I should say.
Yeah. Well, you were literally a dietitian. That was your title.
Yes. Yep.
And it was a salaried position, that whole thing.
Yep. A lot of fun. And I did so much too. I did like cooking
you were there.
And classes and
you were
counseling.
there for a while.
Yeah.
You did cooking classes. You did group sessions with counseling people. You did like one-on-one appointments. You had your little nook. You did like food taste testing and recipe ideas and stuff like
demos
that.
And
yeah,
just,
it was
on the spot questions.
Didn't you? You started out part-time though.
I did. Yeah. I started out part-time because they weren't sure if they were going to have the position there. And then it expanded full-time. So
Right.
I was lucky. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I remember, you liked it and then you didn't like it for some things. And then, it was a job just like anything else. You were there for a couple of years.
Almost, I think it was a little over 2 years that I was there. So
Cool.
yeah.
So at this point in your career, you've worked at an YMCA doing classes. You worked at a food shopping grocery store, essentially. You worked at a hospital prior to this in food and nutrition as a call center operator.
Yes.
So you got some clinical experience there, some exposure to the steps and whatnot, working side by side with dietitians in a clinical setting. And then you did something extraordinary.
I quit my job.
She did. She quit her job. She took the leap. Well, you went back for your master's.
I did.
So let's pause. So
Yeah.
you went back for your master's degree
Yes.
with Utah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So she went essentially attended Utah State University as a virtual student,
Yes. It was online. So
and you got your master's degree. Heck yeah. Congratulations.
it was a good high five.
That was a good high five. It was a good high five because you have a master's degree and you know how to do good high fives. That's what you get. It's part of the package. So you have a master's. What is your master's in?
Dietetics administration.
So your master's degree is in dietetics administration.
Yes.
My bachelor's degree is in business administration. They both have the word administration in them, and that's all they have in common. But that's pretty, a master's degree is nothing to sneeze at. That's a pretty significant feat. Now, I'm just going to gush a little bit. Felicia completed her master's degree while she was working full-time, just having been in a rather horrific car accident, recovering from the car accident. It was bad. She juggled a full-time job, getting her master's degree successfully, killing the game, while recovering from this ridiculous. I mean, your car was totaled.
Yeah.
It was not. It was a bad day. It was a bad time. All the while, plugging away to start your own business.
Yeah.
Amazing.
A lot.
Incredible. Round of applause. I'm just going to sound effects. It's happening right now. So, all right. So you're at ShopRite for a while. All this stuff happens. You complete your master's. They slide you a little extra for your master's. They say, you know what, Felicia? You're valuable. You have a master's degree. You have an MS after your name now. A little more money. Couldn't keep you. Couldn't hold you down. Nope. Sorry. I'm going to do my own thing. And then you took the leap.
Yep.
And you started a private practice.
I did. Yep.
Tell us about that process.
Of starting the practice itself?
Sure, yeah.
So I started building it in like 2015, but it really wasn't full time until 2016.
Right.
So I was doing one-on-one sessions with clients. So
you were being referred clients by insurance companies.
Yeah. So the first year, I wasn't taking insurance. I was just doing self-pay. And then I became a provider, which is kind of a process to become a provider for insurance companies.
So you sign up with like Blue Cross Blue Shield as a provider for dietetic services.
Yeah. So you have to apply to become a provider. They let you into the network. There's a whole credentialing process and contract stuff and all that kind of jazz.
Right.
And then you're a provider. And so you're listed on the portal. So it's like if you were to find a doctor near you, it's the same idea. You could find a dietitian.
Yeah. So if you go online through your insurance company and, they recommend professionals to you, Felicia's name showed up in the list of dietitians in your area.
Yes.
For instance.
Yep. So you search your zip code, you could, be
right.
able to find it.
And what's interesting is most people don't realize that they are covered through their insurance provider for like 3 or 6 yearly appointments with a dietitian, something like that.
Yeah, it depends on the plan, but there's, like independence. One of the better plans with them is they cover 6 visits with a dietitian per year. So it's like really awesome.
It's unfortunate that a lot of people don't know that, and it's just not front and center in terms of your insurance program, but it is something that people absolutely should take advantage of. It is a service you are paying for through your benefits, through your employer or your private plan, and you should absolutely seek out the advice of a dietitian. You're essentially already paying for it. So it's cool. It's something you did. And that became you were kind of doing it part-time while you were at ShopRite a little bit.
Yeah, I was doing that part-time. I was seeing clients, but then I was also doing classes and cooking classes.
Yeah, so you were going downtown. You were going downtown and doing these classes for these companies.
Yes.
You were on like a billboard or something. Weren't you?
I was on a newspaper stand. It's still there, actually.
Is it really?
It's on the side.
Nice.
So they did.
So she's basically famous. Who saw you on a billboard, or were you in a commercial too on TV?
I was in a commercial for Independence. Yeah.
There you go.
For
So
that,
you were all over the place, and that was a cool setup. It was pretty slick. They had cameras above her, cameras on the sides and stuff.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's pretty cool. But eventually, you decided that wasn't worth it anymore to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things changed, and she started to grow professionally. So you did these cooking classes, and then you were a provider for insurance companies for one-on-one sessions for people to recommend what they should eat and how they should manage lifestyle illnesses, diabetes, things like that.
Yep.
Didn't you had a client that was having trouble getting pregnant?
Yeah, I've had a couple clients where, fertility was an issue, and it depends. Some clients that I've seen, have issues with fertility, and sometimes it's related to hormone imbalances, things like polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
Diabetes is another one.
That can affect trying to get pregnant and the success rate of that.
Yeah, because it can also affect like insulin levels and things like that.
So these clients would see you, and you would make recommendations to them to change their lifestyle, and they went from not being able to have a baby to being able to have a baby, which I thought was remarkable.
Yeah.
And that's something that you would never think a dietitian would get involved in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure that was extremely gratifying for you.
Yeah. And, with counseling in general, I just want to just backtrack a second. Everything is confidential. And so, and speaking about any clients as you're kind of referencing, it's always something that, is more general. Cat's here.
There she is.
It's more generalized, but yeah, I've had a few clients where they were able to, then conceive a baby. And
incredible.
Yeah. So
that's cool. And that's what you did for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a private practice, you were a provider for insurance companies, and you had one-on-one clients. You had you had a walking group at one point?
Yeah, so it's kind of on hold right now, but I did a walking group, a walking and fitness group where I would do we did body weight exercises. It was just at a park. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then so you also you were the provider for a company or two, where you were their on-site dietitian on a contractual basis?
Yeah, so there's a couple of companies, and some I still work with virtually now, where I am one of their dietitians that are kind of, I don't work for them, but they contract with.
So they would contract Felicia to go to their offices, and it was just like a blitz of 10 or 15 people in one day who would see you for a half hour or an hour or whatever it was.
Yep. So sometimes it was one-on-one sessions where I would see anywhere from 5 to 15 clients in one day. Yeah. Sometimes it was for lunch and learn type stuff. And so I would have back-to-back 20 or 30 minute power lessons almost.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. But you were essentially a contract employee for these big companies.
Yes.
To go in and be the subject matter expert and see their employees as a part of their benefits program, because obviously if a company wants to take care of its employees and they don't want them to get sick and things like that, stay productive, part of that is having a healthy lifestyle, and providing your services to their employees is a benefit for them. Mm-hmm. And that was something else that you did.
Yeah. As
part of your private practice.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And
now, currently, you are under the employ of a college.
Yes. So still have the practice, but I am now full-time, tenure tracked. So I'm not tenured just yet.
You're on the way.
But I'm on the track to being that. So
teaching nutrition full-time. Ironically, teaching the class that doctors would be taking.
Yeah. Most of my students are nursing students, but it's the same type of class that if a
basics.
Yeah, it covers the basics of nutrition, and then a little bit of each of the life cycles, so pregnancy and senior nutrition.
Got it. So now currently you still have your practice. Mm-hmm. You're still a provider for some insurance companies.
Yes.
And then also now you're full-time. You are a full-time college professor in effect.
Yeah, not a professor just yet. I'm still
the
considered...
word professor is a protected term, I guess.
Yeah, it's you have so many years of experience. So
got it. Professor track.
Yeah, I'm considered
free professor.
I'm considered an instructor, and then I think in a year I'll be an assistant professor, and then in 2 or 3 years, I didn't realize there were so many levels to
semantics.
This.
You're a college professor, whatever.
I'm going chart.
with that. Yeah. All right. So that's cool. So now Felicia is teaching at a college. Mm-hmm. Interesting enough. And so let's just recap your career up to this point very quickly. I'm just going to piece through it, and you tell me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So undergrad,
Mm-hmm.
internship,
Yes.
you become a dietitian, you're working at the YMCA
Mm-hmm.
as sort of a community dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
You got a job at a supermarket,
Yes.
and you were sort of a commercial dietitian, or what would you call it, I guess?
Retail
Dietitian. You started your private practice,
Mm-hmm.
and you were a private practice dietitian for insurance providers and big companies. You did group cooking classes for other companies, and now you are settled into teaching at a college nutrition classes.
Mm-hmm.
And and she's like not even 30 years old yet, so I'm just throwing that out there. So there's just a lot of stuff that you did as a dietitian that's not even the typical, because it's partially my career and my exposure, but when I think of a dietitian, I think of the lady with the lab coat scooting around in the hospital, throwing tube feedings at nurses and telling patients to stop eating so much bacon. Like, that's my impression of a dietitian.
That's what most people's impression of a dietitian is, to be honest.
Okay.
And even like as a student, I thought the same thing. I thought I was going to have to work in clinical, and that I didn't realize there was all these other avenues for, being a dietitian. So.
Tons and tons of branching paths available to you. And just coincidentally, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but you are also a certified personal trainer.
Yes.
You got your certificate for that like a year or two ago, right?
Yeah, it was actually last January 2019. That's when I passed. Yep.
So you're a certified personal trainer, a little over a year, and you work that into your business. Some of your clients seek training advice and fitness plans, and you're now accredited to administer that advice also.
Yes.
And you recently completed a class on health coaching?
Yeah, so I just went through a training program for health coaching. So I'm
What's a health coach?
So in Pennsylvania, it's kind of a broad term. With a health coach, you basically you can give like general nutrition education.
Okay.
But you can't
Something I would say you're qualified to do.
Yes. One reason, there's a couple reasons why I went into health coaching. One was we're actually looking to create that program at the college.
So you're creating the program at the college you're teaching. So you wanted to become a student of the program itself.
Yeah, because the goal was for actually this program to become like a national, a part of the national exam. And so the national exam, you have to, in order to teach this course, you have to be nationally recognized.
Right.
Yeah, so I had to be a health coach first.
It's funny that you have to get a sort of lesser credential to teach something.
Yeah.
You're definitely way qualified to teach.
Yeah, and it was, I just finished the course, and then I have to sit for the national exam in October.
That's so funny.
And it's one thing that's been really helpful, though, was this last kind of piece that I was in went through a lot of like motivational interviewing, which is what I use in counseling sessions.
Oh,
and,
yeah, of course.
Helping people change, and most people come to me knowing what to do. It's just the doing it.
So that aspect of being a health coach is different from just typical dietetics because it's sort of concentrated. It's very specific.
Yes. And one thing that I learned throughout this program is that, they are very clear on that, they cannot give, meal plans, dietary advice like that, no working with diseases.
So what can they do?
It's more so facilitating someone to take action for themselves and working in conjunction with other health professionals. So, you can talk with people about their diet, but not give them necessarily the, you need to do this or that, but more helping them to.
So it's kind of a guide.
Yeah, you're partnering with them in a sense, and they're choosing what to do. You're kind of, I'm going to say coaching, but you're basically coaching.
It's appropriate. That's a good word. Yeah. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so.
Cool. That's quite a varied rap sheet of experience and expertise you racked up there. Now, I don't know if I'm branching off a little too far, and I don't know exactly what you've done specifically, but isn't there a sort of mental health aspect to some of the things that you do? Yeah,
so it's something I'm kind of diving into more in terms of like what the research says and supporting of it, but it was just like a common theme I was coming across a lot with, mental health. It's, the food you eat and how that affects your mood.
Food and mood
connection. Yeah. Or the opposite too. Like how food affects your mood, but also how your mood can affect your food choices,
Right.
So
I'm bored. I'm going to eat chips.
Yeah. That, or, someone's feeling kind of down the dumps.
I struggle every day. Not that. Being bored and eating chips.
Chips.
So it's just funny how broad stroking, or like how broad strokes some of the stuff, it just how far reaching dietetics is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just there's a lot there are a lot of options as a dietitian for what to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had a couple different avenues that I've been in with, but there's so many other options out there, and so many other places that you might see a dietitian, like with sports teams.
Oh yeah. So when I was a manager, I had an intern for the food service management rotation, for their rotation, and it was a young man who it's very unusual to see a young man involved in dietetics. It's very dominantly female,
yes.
Right? And this young man, he was in the process of becoming a sports dietitian, which I thought was interesting. And of course, those guys, the professional teams, are going to work with dietitians to keep their diets good and keep themselves fit and healthy for their sport.
Yeah.
So it's just another avenue that dietitians are essential in providing care for.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So that's just a taste of what a dietitian does and what they can do, and it's quite varied. It's very deep and surprisingly broad.
Yes.
And so you have some specific experience in a handful of areas, but not nearly all of them.
No, yeah, there's so many different areas.
So a clinical dietitian is the one that works in a hospital.
Yes.
But a clinical dietitian can have many roles aside from just being the one that kind of assigns the tube feedings and recommends diets.
Yeah. I mean, there's some dietitians that's their, area of expertise, and usually they'll get additional certifications. But, there's other dietitians that work with, like they do outpatient counseling through the hospital. Or
oh, right. Yeah, there was one at our hospital.
Yeah. And they like some that work with dialysis patients, some that work particular in like a certain floor. So like cardiac care unit or oncology, depending on, what different areas are in the hospital. So they might specialize in one area even within the hospital setting too.
Yeah. Huge hospitals have like a fleet of dietitians.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. When I was up at Lehigh Valley Hospital in Pennsylvania, it's a massive like 500 something bed hospital. They literally had like this team of dietitians. There was a bunch of them. Pretty crazy. So anyway, lots of different roles a dietitian can partake in, and tons of different things that they can do, different environments that they can work in. Super interesting. Kind of crazy. You would never know it if you didn't. Is there any other that come to mind that are interesting and kind of out there that we didn't really touch on yet?
Like different roles?
Yeah. Or different jobs maybe?
I mean, there's a couple other ones I could be with. And we were just talking about sports, but I know a few dietitians that worked for like the Phillies. So
right, you did a little bit of work with someone for the Phillies, didn't you? Or was ShopRite partnered with the Phillies?
Yeah, they do like a program with them.
We went to a Phillies game and got lots of sunburn and had really good seats.
I forgot. We handed out snacks.
And we handed out snacks out front.
Like healthy snacks.
Yeah,
I forgot. I totally forgot about that.
Super, like a nice perk.
That was a lot of
fun.
To
go to a Phillies game.
Yeah.
Super fun. Yeah, so they work with, you were saying?
Oh, it's with dietitians, they work with like the Phillies or even like major like NFL teams.
Okay.
So that's like one area we were talking about, so like sports in general. But other areas could be like dialysis clinics too, food banks or food pantries. Sometimes dietitians partner there with like food insecurity. So that's a big area.
Yeah. Isn't there a corporate side too?
Yep. So corporate dietitians, there's some that work for like big companies like General Mills or Campbell Soup.
They all have dietitians.
Yeah, they all have dietitians. They work on those recipes that you see on their websites. Or
they're managing the food labels and whatnot, I assume?
Yeah, they're talking a lot with like how other products too, like, product inventions that, what people are trending with too. So it's really interesting. I went to a few test kitchens too with
I always think those are so cool. If you ever see these test kitchens where they're testing products or they're like taking pictures for marketing materials, just like a weirdly sterile environment with like lots of crazy tools that you would never see elsewhere. Really, really interesting environments to be involved in professionally.
Yeah.
So what else?
So like working with companies like that, some work with like larger corporations too.
Wasn't there a board of dietitians for ShopRite that was like a next level up sort of corporate?
Yeah, so like the corporate for ShopRite is called Wakefern. And so there was those corporate level dietitians and then the retail store dietitians. So the corporate level dietitians, they did a lot partnering with the major companies. So like we would get samples, boxes every couple of months of like just all these different samples. And, they would facilitate that. They facilitated all the trainings. They worked with creating some of the bigger kind of branded programs, like cooking classes across all of the stores. So it's all kind of unified. So there was a ton of, you had a lot of flexibility in what you could do at the store level too, but they offered so many different resources.
So there were corporate dietitians at that level too, like a level above, where it's like they're essentially working in a very corporate environment, but they're still a dietitian. They just don't touch food. It's more of like a paper pusher kind of thing, I would assume.
Yeah, they more so managed the dietitians than anything else, and worked with the companies, but they didn't necessarily do one-on-one counseling or
more of a concentrated expertise as a manager, where they had, their understanding and their credential, and they were in effect a manager.
Yeah, yeah.
So there were also food service managers in hospitals and other settings that were like, they had their RD. They were a registered dietitian, but they also had their certified dietary manager and their CDM, and they were the manager of a hospital's food and nutrition department, or a school's food and nutrition.
Yeah, like the food service man. I know a couple dietitians who are dietitian food service manager. They have like a split title.
Yeah.
And a few work at school districts where they, take care of all the food service management roles, which I'm not 100%.
So they're like a one-person show. They do.
Yes.
Oh, that's a brutal job.
And they do a lot more with like menus and allergies than they do with like counseling.
Okay.
And
of
more
course.
educating with staff. So it's
like food safety and stuff.
Yes.
Ooh,
yeah.
I would hate to be the dietitian and the manager.
It's a lot there.
Wow. So yeah, you wouldn't think of this stuff when you think of a dietitian, for what they do.
Yeah.
And what they can do and what they can get into. Lots of different opportunities. With all the protesting going on and everything right now, and everyone's kind of feeding the funnel of there's a lot of sensitivity right now around the issues that are happening in the country, and it makes sense, of course. But one thing you wouldn't expect is to see things about diversity in your field coming up and in question. And one thing I would just like to highlight is that, well, no wonder you don't have more diversity, because there's such a big barrier to entry.
Yeah.
So you have to get a 4-year degree. Soon you'll need a master's degree.
Yep.
And you have to do an unpaid 9-month-long internship. And you have to pay to apply for it.
Yeah.
So it puts a financial constraint on who's able to even partake in these programs. I just thought that was noteworthy. And it's something that maybe there should be a change to in the future, possibly to lower the barrier of entry, at least financially.
Yeah, that's one of the things of even like some people were saying, like even just making the internship paid, because the thing that they recommend is for you to not work. They don't want you to work at all through the internship.
Yeah.
So, it's just, there's so many different, barriers along the way, and then it's like that big cost on top of it.
Yeah, you were in a fortunate position that you had been working for so long prior to that point that you had enough savings to get through that period.
Yeah, and luckily, I had the kind of job where I was able to work flexible hours, and I taught gymnastics, so it was things that I wasn't on the weekends, and so I was able to finagle my schedule. But I didn't have like a hard shift time during the week like some people do. It has to be in by 4. You can't do that with an internship.
How do you maintain that? How do you raise a family?
There was some people in my internship class who had like a lot of little kids, or they had like newborns, and I couldn't imagine, and they made it through. I just
rough.
I can't imagine.
I'm sure it was really rough. But yeah, so you have to go through quite a bit, but there are a lot of different opportunities. It's not exactly the most glamorous, high-paying job once you're out of college, especially as an entry-level clinical dietitian.
Yeah.
Which is another thing I think is crazy, that's the current state of the economy, where you got to pay a hand over fist just to pay your way through college, pay for an internship, all for a job that has a median income in like the 40s.
Yeah.
Like 40-something thousand a year.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. But Felicia had a passion for the job, and of course it wasn't about the money. It was about the passion for the profession. Obviously, you've done really well for yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing great now. Okay. So, that's a lot of different areas of practice. I think we covered pretty much everything. You have to take continuing ed credits, though, don't you?
Yes. So you need 75 continuing ed credits every 5 years. And so with those, actually, just did a couple yesterday, but you can do like self-study courses. You can go to seminars. You can go to do webinars online, which is kind of what's happening right now.
Yeah. You're always on a webinar or something.
Well, that with everything's a webinar now, but
yeah. So, you used to go to stuff before too.
Yeah, I would go to like conference, like there's the day-long conferences. I went to a symposium that was I forget what that was, but
I remember you traveling for some stuff.
Yeah. You could definitely, there's so many things you could do with,
But you have to take so many continuing ed credits every 5 years, was it, you said?
Yeah, so mine is a 5-year cycle, but it's 75 every 5 years. So some people do like a 1-year cycle, but they need,
X amount per year.
And then since I'm also in PA, there's licensure, so there's state licensure. So I have a state license, and with that, I need 30 continuing eds every 2 years. So
they overlap though. You use 30 of the 75 for.
Yeah, but there's a little bit more of a like every 2 years you need 30. So then like putting your license, it's like kind of doesn't. And it's fine. I usually end up with more anyway.
I mean, it lines up. You do 2 years for 30, 2 years for 30, and then 1 year for 15 for your 75.
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense. So it lines up.
Yeah.
So it's just something else that you have to do to maintain your credential.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I just would like to stress the idea that this is all she does. Food. Food and how it affects your body, what the literature says, what the science says. It is very objective, and there is just not much room for opinion, frankly.
Yeah, most of the opinion, and I think most of where the headbutting comes in is how you translate the science, how you, and I think where a lot of people have different opinions on how that goes. But
sure, and you as someone who is steeped in the literature and is very used to looking at it, you know what to look for in terms of what science is saying versus what some people maybe want it to say.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something else that you end up doing a lot as a dietitian, assuming you're applied and you keep up with current trends and what's coming down the pike.
Definitely. That's something, there's certain aspects that are changing. There's some core stuff that happens in your body that doesn't change necessarily.
Right, no, of course.
But there's
different foods are constantly being created.
Yeah, or they're learning more like about the gut microbiome.
Oh yeah.
Like that's a huge
crazy town.
They're learning so much about that area. So that's an area where you definitely want to be on top of the research.
Yeah. There's more bacteria cells in your gut than there are you cells in your body. Like you are more bacteria than you are genetically you.
Isn't that weird to think about?
It is very weird. We are all vessels for bacteria.
Pretty much.
Delicious.
When I read that, I was like,
Yeah. Whatever. They're doing good stuff for you. And then like what you eat affects the culture of the bacteria in your gut. So it literally changes your bacterial environment, which can have all kinds of crazy effects. It's so deep. There's so much to it. Are there not research dietitians, sort of like science dietitians?
Yeah, there's a couple that actually I was just on a thing with one, but there's some dietitians that actually are in researches and
they are research dietitians.
Yeah,
that is their job.
Yep, they're a part of the studies. They're helping with the design they're like in the actual research process itself.
In effect, they're sort of like a research biologist, except specifically for nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Just
another area.
Just something else that you guys get into, all kinds of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. So, we've talked a lot about what dietitians can do, all different types of roles that they can fill. Is there anything that we missed that you think is interesting to touch on?
Role-wise or just
roles, yeah, that a dietitian can fill. I mean, we've.
I think I'm trying to rack my brain.
So much stuff.
The other one I would just probably want to point out would be there's different special. I mean, I know I mentioned like cancer and stuff like that, but there's also
you can specialize.
You could specialize. Like there's some dietitians that work also in bariatrics too. They work at like clinics or
bariatric. Just explain briefly for.
Oh, sorry. Bariatric surgery. So if someone's having like gastric bypass, like let's say someone's like 500 or 600 pounds, and they're going to get some kind of a lap band. They're going to get part of their stomach removed or, staple, any of that kind of stuff.
So a dietitian may be specializing in that sort of treatment.
Yes, where they would be working with them before surgery. And usually they're on a very strict diet to, maintain that weight loss. And then they work with them after because depending on the type of surgery, there's a lot of nutrient deficiencies.
Right. Of course,
that can occur. And then pediatric dietitian is another huge area too. So
specializing in working with children and parents to
Yeah. And some people work in like the outpatient role. So, like one-on-one with families or, with kids, but there's other dietitians that work specifically like inpatient. So like, at different pediatric hospitals. So that would be another kind of big area too.
Yeah. And I guess there are probably geriatric dietitians to some extent.
Yeah. There's even like specialty,
Within
aspects
that.
too. Yep.
Yeah, of course. And some dietitians specialize. Like, didn't you kind of for a while have a specialty in diabetes and pre-diabetes?
Yeah, I didn't get like one of the certifications is a certified diabetes educator. I didn't go that route just because I was finding more people where most people that I was working with just had diabetes, but never had proper education on it. So they were told to watch their sugars or,
right.
And people don't know what that means.
We touched on that a little bit on our last episode with fruit, which you can check out. And one of the links I'll leave probably a little something to pop up in a card in the corner or something. But yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah. And like, that's a vague watching your sugars. What does that even mean? Like people were like, I don't put sugar in my coffee. So like, that's it. Right.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to that. But yeah, I was working a lot with people who had I keep like punching the microphone. I'm talking my hands too
violent.
much.
Very Italian of you.
No, I'm gonna sit on my hands.
But dietitians can specialize in particular lifestyle illnesses, chronic diseases, that sort of thing.
Yes, yeah. Like I know dietitians who specialize in like PCOS or even vegan.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yes,
right.
Sorry, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Why are you apologizing? One of her bad habits. You're too polite.
I am.
Anyway.
I know other dietitians who specialize particularly in like the plant-based aspect or vegan aspect, but also for children and like baby-led weaning where you're like, not just spoon feeding a child, but having them pick up the food and eat it themselves. So there's so many different little areas too.
Right.
It's exciting.
Hot take alert coming up. So as a dietitian, as an expert in food, which we've effectively gone over the many, many reasons why you are that. So in your expert experience, I won't even say the word opinion because it doesn't need to be said. Is a vegan diet, is a plant-based diet, 100% plant-based, no animal products, is that diet safe and adequate for all stages of life?
Yep, safe and adequate for all stages of life, and that includes pregnancy nutrition all the way through, senior health, and then it also includes children too. And there's things to consider, but it's 100% the research supports, plant-based, vegan,
You heard it here, folks. Certified personal trainer, dietitian extraordinaire, Felicia Porrazza of PorrazzaNutrition.com, hereby not endorsing per se, but stating the fact that a plant-based, 100% plant-based vegan diet is suitable for all stages of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And will not make your teeth fall out or your hair fall out or other weird things that I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you're not eating well, but that's aside to like.
Yeah, just a brief aside. I just wanted to get your hot take on that. Hottakes.com.
Absolutely.
So, as a dietitian, how can you help someone? So, what can you do for someone to help them in your professional role?
So I can help people in a couple ways. And it's one of the first things, like when I have a new client, is I always ask them like what they're looking to get out of it. But some people come to me for weight loss. So I might help them with managing their diet. And I'm not a proponent of like strict calorie control diets because most of the time people don't focus on the quality of the food, but counting
on the quantity.
Yeah, they focus on like counting calories and,
So quality over quantity applies to food.
Yes. So
how about that?
Calories could be a tool, but they just hang people up too much. So that's an aside. But yeah, I can help people with weight loss. So that's one of the major things people come to me for. Management of a disease, so diabetes in particular. Actually, I had a couple clients today that I was working with for diabetes.
Not just diabetes, though.
Not just diabetes.
Heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease.
Yep. So I often have people like with heart disease, like they have cholesterol, and then that what spurs them into seeing a dietitian, is they have high cholesterol. How do I manage that?
Right.
Especially some people are looking to, manage their diet before their next appointment because they don't know what's going to happen.
Sure. It's just like, brushing your teeth a lot before you go to the dentist.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
You are the proverbial toothbrush.
So, I have some people who, come to me because they're looking for fueling the best way. So maybe not even for weight loss, but just
performance
nutrition. Yep. So sports nutrition, or a combination of like plant-based and sports. So they're, vegetarian or vegan, and they want to make sure that they're eating to support their workouts, like the style of eating with that. So
got it.
That's another big one.
What's the most interesting thing you think you've done, I guess? Maybe aside from the lady who had the baby, which is super interesting, not to discredit it. I'm just, kind of, we already talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would say that like some of my bigger things are like when someone, gets labs back and like their cholesterol drops like 100 points. It's like
due to your instruction with them and them working with you.
Yeah. Or like someone who, like their lab changes. Those are always like really exciting moments, for clients, and
their A1C improves or something.
Yeah. So like they like see the power of, the food, the exercise, that, or like an aha moment about like lifestyle. Cause I always get people who they know what to do. Like they tell me, I know what to do. I'm just not doing it. And they're like, so how can you help me?
How can you help me convince myself to do what I know I need to do?
Yeah.
So it kind of becomes a mental sort of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like unpacking that, like what's mentally blocking them. And sometimes it's motivation. Maybe they're not interested in like this avenue. They think they have to count calories or they have to do all this meal prep, and it's, that's what they think they have to do to be successful. And sometimes kind of scaling it back a little bit by bit.
Yeah. So one of the impressions that I always got that a dietitian in your sort of role does for someone is, well, for one, accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else cares about what you're eating. You're checking in with someone, and some of your clients, you respond to email and things like that, where you have programs where that's sort of built into the package. And also, just someone else caring about what you're doing. And then sort of the specific things, like if people don't know like what to do, you don't necessarily do meal plans, but you encourage just healthy changes.
Yeah. And like with, most people, I've had so many people come to me, they're like, I just need a diet plan, or I just need a meal plan. And, it's funny because people say that, but when I've created meal plans in the past, either didn't follow them at all. They just kind of like sat on the table, or like they followed them for a few days and kind of like, it kind of put a Band-Aid on the issue. It didn't actually solve the root.
Yeah. So, attacking a problem and not a symptom of a problem.
Yes. And so that's where you have to do the deep dive to figure out like why someone wants to change, what's motivating them, figuring out their reason why, like why are they doing this, and then making things that are realistic for them. Like, a lot of people set these crazy goals and, smaller little steps along the way.
You just said something that just triggered like a bunch of business school stuff in me, like finding the why. That's like a Simon Sinek type of motivational leadership. Jesus, I'm just like swimming in my leadership material from my previous career now. But yeah, and it's funny that you happened upon that as someone who's doing what you're doing. It's just interesting that's the approach. Yeah. And I'm sure it's very helpful.
Yeah. And it's, even with meal planning, because I just did this today, actually. Sometimes people are at a point where they're like, I see so much in the media and I want to know what are the best things to eat. And if you talk too broadly about it.
So someone is saying, I see this and that in the media to you. They're saying, I see this and that in the media. I just want to know what I should eat.
Yes.
That's what they're saying to you.
Yep. And so, one thing I'll often do is share like some resources of, what a healthy plate could look like, and just give them examples, and then just letting them know what foods are what. Like, what is a protein? What is a carbohydrate? What are vegetables?
What's so funny is that's not common knowledge. A lot of people don't know what a protein or a carb is. And I had friends when I was in my early 20s, when I was first getting into this stuff, that it's, you forget that that's not really something everyone knows about. Yeah. Like, people don't know that bread is carbs. Some people think that that's got protein or, whatever. It's just funny that's, it's something that's so ubiquitous now. You hear about protein like all the time, and you kind of know now what it is and whatever. But it's just, this stuff it is simultaneously something that a lot of people have an opinion about, but also don't know very much about. Yeah. Which is super interesting to me. And it's funny that you have to kind of navigate that so much professionally as a dietitian. Yeah. In that private practice sort of role.
Yeah, like some of it is debunking, a myth with a client. And
Right.
depending on the client, sometimes, just going through little pieces of it is helpful and they kind of move on from it. And some clients, they want me to send them the research. They want to look at look at it for themselves. And so, that's where
you become a research funnel.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like a dance almost, and not being too much of an expert, and how you talk to someone, because that could be super off-putting,
I'm sure, yeah.
So it's
I'm sure.
kind of finding that balance between giving them credible information, but also in little spits that are, helpful for them. So
making it digestible. Yeah, so that was something that I was thinking about earlier that I kind of forgot to say, but like a lot of what you do is that you sort of demystify the stuff.
That's a good word.
Demystify, simplify. You make it digestible. You make it easy to understand. Because food and nutrition is something that is often perceived as extremely complex. I mean, that is what everyone describes it as. It's so complicated. It's not that complicated. It's just like everything else. You just need to hear it from the people who know it best.
Yeah, that and I think we kind of mentioned this before, but with overcomplicating things, it's also the emotional side of it, which is why I also want to kind of get more into that area. But, the emotional side and how your mood basically affects your food intake, but also, how there's so many things, in food. We eat when we're sad, we're excited, first family celebrate. Like there's so many.
Yeah, and there's a lot of connections to certain foods and certain emotions or certain activities.
Yeah.
Like, I got to a point where I had a ritual where I would just kind of, there would be like a heavy thunderstorm. And I love, ever since I was a kid, I loved watching thunderstorms and just like being out and hearing the rain hitting the car and stuff. And I would hop in the car and drive to Taco Bell. And I would get a bunch of burritos and just hang out in the car, listen to the rain and maybe throw on a podcast or something. And it got to the point where every time there was a thunderstorm, I wanted Taco Bell. It makes absolutely no sense. So it's a weird Pavlovian response. But there are these weird, intricate relationships that people develop with food where there's like a sort of emotional dependence on the food.
Yeah.
And the food makes you feel a certain way, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that and like the habit aspect. Like I had a couple clients where they would come home. Some were teachers and they'd come home at like 4:00. They'd have a snack, they'd have a soda, and it was something they did as a child. And they just kind of continue that. And they're like, I'm not even hungry sometimes.
But if you don't do it, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, like they felt like they were missing something.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, I had a lot of bad habits at work from that. Let me tell you, when you work in a kitchen, it's even harder to manage.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot you can do for someone.
Yeah. And, and just like with that kind of scenario, there is no one size fits all approach. So like that's a huge thing too, is every client is different and every person I work with is absolutely different. There's never going to be the same approach to work with somebody. And that's what you also get with working with a dietitian, is someone who's going to personalize it for you.
A personalized experience. No one knows you better than you. And the best way you can help someone help you is to connect with them personally. So a one-on-one appointment with a dietitian is very valuable because they can cater their recommendations and your path with eating and healthy lifestyle to exactly how you are and what you're doing and what your interests and needs and tastes are.
Absolutely.
So there's definitely value to the personal experience that you get when you work one-on-one with a dietitian. It seems that way.
Yes.
It's a very valuable vocation, and I hate how undersold it is. I wish it was more front and center in healthcare. I wish it was talked about more. I wish dietitians were brought in as the experts for food in all cases, not just some of the time. I mean, nothing against doctors, but doctors do enough. Doctors do so much as it is. We should maybe not put that pressure on doctors. Let doctors be doctors. Let dietitians be dietitians.
Yes.
Doctors are already so busy as it is. Let's pass some of the burden off to another type of expert, perhaps. That's just, let dietitians be allies to doctors and have them work together.
Absolutely.
I think it would be great to have dietitians as more of a front and center part of healthcare. Me personally, just throwing it out there. No bias or anything. Of course not. Totally not.
Hello.
So, well, we got an hour and 9 here. I think we hit all of our notes. What else you got?
The only thing I just want to mention is just in PA specifically.
Pennsylvania,
Sorry.
in the United States of America. Stop apologizing.
I know. I thought you were just not skip that. Okay. So, one thing I just want to mention is that in Pennsylvania, the term nutritionist is not a regulated term right now.
Yeah.
There is a bill that I just got another update about it, but it hasn't been passed just yet. There's a lot of issues right now.
So there's a bill in process to protect the term nutritionist.
Yes.
Why you're saying this, I believe, is because right now anyone can just call themselves a nutritionist.
Yes, in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania.
In other states, there's some.
There are some states where it's protected, and you have to have some kind of credential.
Yep.
So in those states, is it akin to dietitian, that term?
It depends. Some of them are lumped together. So like how it's supposed to be in PA, if this bill passes, is it'll be dietitian, nutritionist, or nutritionist all refers to
a registered dietitian with the credential nationally recognized.
Yes, it all.
So then in some states, you can call yourself a nutritionist and not have an RD credential. And in other states, that's illegal.
Yes.
Oh, that's so confusing.
It is confusing. That's part of the problem is it's confusing. And then there's also issues with then working across state lines as a dietitian.
God, that's got to become a national thing.
Yeah.
See, that's part of the problem. People don't understand that. It's just a nutritionist, someone who calls themselves a nutritionist, they're not necessarily an expert.
Exactly. And that's why, some people use those terms interchangeably because they don't realize that there's a difference. But unfortunately, a lot of people who proclaim themselves as a nutritionist I've seen some people proclaim themselves as a nutritionist that have like an English background. Like
their degree is like an English.
Yeah. Like no
degree.
Science, not let alone nutrition, but no, like not even a science related.
They have like a bachelor's in communications and they're calling themselves a nutritionist.
Yeah.
It's just not a protected term across the United States. It may be different in other countries, Canada, the UK, other places. I'm sure it's different. But here in the United States, a lot of people can call themselves a nutritionist and get away with it, even if they don't have any kind of credential or official accredited expertise.
Yeah. And the whole thing with like the state licensure or the state, state license is that it's to protect the public from,
of course, from being swindled and bamboozled.
Exactly. But there's a lot of backlash to it right now, which is why it's taking forever.
What, from all the fake dietitians?
Yeah. Like, and some companies that utilize coaches, like I'm not necessarily saying health coaches, but just like a coach as in like a trainer who also gives nutrition information.
So they can't call themselves nutritionists because they're only a personal trainer.
Yes. So yes.
Wow.
So, and I'm not saying that everyone who's a trainer and a nutritionist, or a health coach, isn't providing valuable information. There's so much misinformation that I've had.
I'll say it. I'll say it. I don't think most personal trainers who are providing nutrition advice are providing good advice.
No, and it's the only time I've seen it be really good is when they're also working with a dietitian. Like the trainer connects with the dietitian.
Most personal trainers are like gym bros that their idea of good nutrition advice is like eating chicken and broccoli.
Yeah. Or like unrealistic. I had one client who was their trainer told them they should only be eating 1,000 calories a day along with the training regimen and no carbs. It was just like
no carbs.
Yeah, it was just
your body's fuel source is carbohydrates, no carbs. I mean, do your thing if you're on keto or whatever. We don't need to get into that, but 1,000 calories a day is like what Holocaust victims were eating. That's an insanely small number of calories to eat every day for like months.
Yeah.
Maybe as a temporary thing, if you dial back your calories for a few days a week or something like that, or it's something you do very short term, maybe then it's okay, I guess. But like to live that way.
Yeah. And it's not realistic. It's not realistic long term. And the couple clients that was working with this particular trainer, one of the things they were telling me was like they didn't want to tell them what they ate over the weekend, or they felt guilty about what they ate, or they were just hungry. It was just like, this is not good. So
I would say consult a dietitian and not a personal trainer for advice. Even if you're the kind of person that wants to get jacked, if you want to get huge and ripped, that is something that you can also help somebody with.
Absolutely.
Didn't you have a client or two that was like something that they?
Yeah, like, I say the majority of my clients are looking for weight loss, but I've had clients who are looking particularly for weight gain, but like muscle mass gain, or they were
Right.
looking for more heavier training routines, and they wanted to make sure that what they were eating was going to support that.
Supporting their exercise habits with their diet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All kinds of different stuff you can get into.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went off on a little tangent there about protected terms. No, I'm glad you brought it up.
It's something that bugs me so much.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. What bugs me about it is because I get so many clients that come to me that are just so frustrated. They've been on this diet and that diet, and then they work with someone who gives them this like blatantly incorrect information, or makes it worse, or like tells them that they're a bad person for eating cake on their birthday. And it's like, how are you serious? Like, so, it just... Yeah.
Long story short, consult a dietitian. Do yourself a favor. Don't take nutrition advice from the local Weight Watchers chapter, unless they're working with the dietitian. Maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
Or, maybe not so. Maybe don't be so quick to heed the advice of a personal trainer or someone who knows a personal trainer.
Yeah, look at it through a critical eye, and
consult the experts, just like you would with anything else. If your plumbing goes awry, your sink's busted, who do you call? You don't call a mechanic. You call a plumber.
Yes.
You call a plumber.
No, you're right.
You call a plumber to fix your plumbing. You call a mechanic to fix your car. You call a dietitian to figure out what to eat. I don't know why this is a point of contention. I don't know why everyone likes to pretend that they're an expert because they're a keyboard warrior. They know how to Google things. I know how to change the oil on my bike. I'm not going to pretend that I know the ins and outs of how a motorcycle works.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Let's get off of that.
Anyway.
The Porrazza Nutrition Podcast, brought to you by Felicia Porrazza of PorrazzaNutrition.com. Twitter.com/Porrazza Nutrition, Instagram.com/Porrazza Nutrition. If you want to see some good examples of those plates she was talking about, some good-looking plates of food, interesting recipe ideas, and then YouTube.com/Porrazza Nutrition. We have some, if you're watching, that's where you are right now, hopefully, or it's embedded somewhere, but there's a whole YouTube channel filled with recipe videos, tips and tricks, points to talk about from a seasoned expert in the field. Felicia Porrazza of PorrazzaNutrition.com, registered dietitian.
That's me.
Master's degree included, folks. Pretty serious credentialing process. Just want to say it. All right. We want to wrap this up here?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you found this on iTunes or something like that, maybe plug a review. Let us know how we're doing. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we will catch you next time.
Thanks.